How you doing, man? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Mem Beis, Daf 42 of Masech the Sanhedrin, friends. Yo, friends. Interesting Daf today. Daf Mem Beis Amud Aleph has Kiddush Levana, which is very, very interesting. Kiddush Levana that we say once a month, hopefully. You're gonna recognize parts of today's Daf from that. And then we're going to start on Mem Beis Amud Beis Perik Nigmar Adin, all about Skila. Very, I guess, interesting. I think it's going to be my guesstimation is that it's going to be a big one. Also because I want to really get, closest to like halfway on Mem Gimel Amud Aleph, because that just seems to be like the best stopping point, I think. So we'll see. Hopefully I can get it all in. And we're starting on Mem Beis Amud Beis. We have some work to do there, so I anticipate a relatively long daf, but I don't think it's the hardest daf. Alright. Although there's some hard stuff. Anyways. So, we're going to start on daf Mem Aleph Amid Beis. At the two dots, about 15 lines from the bottom. Echad Omer B'chule. Ad Kama. What's this talking about? Okay. So the Mishnah had said if one says one witness says the second of the month, the other witness says the third of the month, we say okay, nish gefährlich. It's not that big of a deal, because we say, you know what, innocent mistake. One of them knew that the previous month was at 30 days. At 30 days, the other one didn't know. One of them knew it was a chodesh me'uber, a full month. A full 30-day month. The other one didn't know. He thought it was 29 days. So that's pshat behind the discrepancy. It's not nish gefährlich. It's not that big of a deal. But ad kama, is there some point in the month where we say, you know what, you got to get with the program? If one says it was the 25th day of the month, the other one says the 26th day of the month, are we still going to say, well, he didn't know it was 2 days Rosh Chodesh? At a certain point, do we say, hey, get with the program? So Mavacha Chanino. So says Be'etzem Rabbi Yochanan, you have until Ruba Shel Chodesh. You have until halfway through the month. Once you get more than halfway through the month, we say get with the program, and that would be a problem at that point on. It says Rava tries to bring a proof from our Mishnah. Echad Omer b'shlosha v'echad Omer b'chomesh b'chamisha edusim b'tela. Our Mishnah says that if one witness says it was the third of the month, the other witness says it was the fifth of the month, that's a problem. But why is it a problem? How come? If we say that when one says 2 and one says 3, no, nish gefährlich, because one knew about that the previous month was a leap month and the other one didn't, and yet the Mishnah says, but if one says 3 and one says 5, it's a problem. Well, why is it a problem? Why don't we just say, wait, one of them knew that the last 2 months were leap months, and the other one didn't know that either one was a leap month, and that, so many, if we're saying that, it's possible for somebody to get confused about the leap months and to not know about leap months, well then, just like they don't know about one, maybe they know about both of them. So maybe 3 and 5 should be okay, but we say it's not okay. Must be that we say at some point, we say get with the program. So rather, the reason why 3 and 5 is a problem is because we'll say that halfway through the month we say get with the program, and at that point they have to say the same day, and that's why 3 and 5 is therefore 2 and 3 is acceptable, I guess, until Ruba Shel Chodesh. After that, it's unacceptable, and that's why 3 and 5 is never acceptable. Now says the Gemara, L'olam Eimelach, you know what? Really, I will make the argument. Beruba nami loyoda. You know what? I'll make the argument that no, even halfway, even more than halfway through the month, they still don't know it. Just like you can make a mistake with 2 and 3, you can also make a mistake with 25 and 26. Okay, well, if that's the case, then how do we explain 3 and 5 being a problem? Uv'shipura yoda b'chat shipura. Omer ditoy betray Shipur lo Amr D'Torah. The thing is, on the first day of the month, apparently, they would always blow shofar. There was big shofar bluesing on the first day of the month. And that way you hear the shofar. And you know, this is the first day of the month. This is day number 1. So maybe you could miss the shofar 1 month, but we assume that you wouldn't miss the shofar 2 months in a row. Okay? So, azoy. So therefore you can make this mistake the entirety of 1 month, but comes the next month you already get back on track because you'll hear the shofar and say, okay, this is day 1. Azoy. Ad kama mevorchin ala chodesh. Kiddush alavona. We're going to see the text of it in a few minutes. Until when can you say Kiddush alavona? Achatusmale pegimosa, says Rabbi Yechanan, until achatusmale pegimosa, until it's like lacking is filled. V'chama, what's considered its lacking being filled? Amr Yaakov Ba'idi Amr Rav Yehuda ad Shiva Nadoy Amr ad Shisha Aser. So Be'etzim, right? So Rav Yaakov Ba'idi Amr Rav Yehuda. So Rav Yehuda Be'etzim says till 7 days into the month, whereas Nadoy Amri until the 16th of the month. Now, just the moon, the way it works, of course, is that at the beginning of the month you can't see it, and then it expands. At the 7th day of the month, it's half full. At the halfway through the month, it's completely full. You have a full moon, and then it starts waning again. And 3/4 of the month, it's once again a half moon, and then at the end of the month, it goes back to being invisible. And this cycle, of course, happens every month. So now, so we're saying, okay, so what's considered filling up its lacking? Is it considered, right, until kind of, I guess, lacking would be a half moon, until the half moon is filled up? Or is it saying, no, all the way until the full moon, it's considered lacking? So v'tarvayu, Rabbi Yochanan tzvilu, they both hold like Rabbi Yochanan, tismale pigimosa, holemeve ki yisra, but one says that we're talking about like the bow of an arrow, basically a half moon, holemeve ki nafyo, where the other one says that we're talking about like a sieve, a full circle, a full moon. Okay, machlokas and what's considered it's lacking. Omerle Rav Achim Yidifte de Ravina, says Rav Achim Yidifte de Ravina, v'livrei chatoy v'ameitav. According to Rav Yehuda, who says that you can only say Birkas HaChedesh until the 7th day of the month. So, what about between day 7 and day 15, while it's, still filling up, right? It's still, okay, so you can't, okay, according to his opinion, it's no longer Achet Tismale Pigimosa, it's past that, so you can't say Birkas HaChodesh anymore, but it's still, filling up, that's like bracha, that's good, right, get more light. So, at least say Atov V'Ameitiv, even if you can't say Birkas HaChedesh, Kiddush Alavone. Omelei, so Ravina responds, Otu ki choser mimavarchinan daino emes deliver Atov V'Ameitiv. Well, when it's choser, right, when it is pogum, kilu, right, let's say according to Rav Yehuda, until day 7, you wouldn't say daino emes. So if you're not going to say daino emes until day 7, so then why would you say the, I guess, opposite bracha, so to speak, after day 7 of Hatov V'Ameitiv? With the Vachinu Tavayu, well, one second, why don't we say both? Daino emes, or maybe ki chaser. Wait, what is Rashi? Michashvinon la ra legabe. Oh, interesting. No, I feel like I probably understood that wrong. Like maybe what it means is like when it's on its way down and it's losing light. Do you say dainu emes that now when it's adding light we say atov v'ametiv? Maybe that's the point. But anyways, kevin dahainu orche lo mevarchinon. Look, the fact of the matter is that since these are kind of sort of not right, it happens every single month. This isn't any kind of chiddush. Every single month, the moon gets lighter, darker. It's not the chiddush. It's just the way that the world works. Is that the moon fills up until halfway through the month and then unfills for the rest of the month. And therefore, it's not. I guess exceptional enough to say Dainu Emes and Atov V'Ametiv. It's just sort of regular phenomena. Now things are going to start sounding familiar. Anybody who does Kiddush HaChodesh, anybody blesses the month at its proper time, it's as though you are receiving the divine presence. It says here by Rosh Chodesh, HaChodesh Hazeh, this month, Hazeh, and it says, this is my God and I will glorify him. So we see that HaChodesh Hazeh, that Birkas HaChodesh, Kiddush HaLavono, is like Zeh Keli Vanveu, is going out to greet the divine presence. Tanit Rabbi Shmuel, who's taught in the Besmedrash of Rabbi Shmuel, Ilmalei Zochu Yisrael El Hakbil Pnei Avin Shabashamayim Kol Chodesh V'Chodesh Dayim. If the Yidden only were able to receive the face of their Father in heaven once a month, that would be enough. You see, I'm saying from the gears of the Kiddush Havana. Abai says, therefore, because we are receiving the divine presence, our Father in heaven, we say Kiddush Havana standing. Remember Marzutra, they would hold each other's shoulders and they would bless Kiddush Halavona. Yivaldig. Omar le'Ravacha le'Ravashi, says Ravacha Ravashi, b'Mayrove in Eretz Yisrael, mevarche Baruch Mechadesh Chodoshim. What's Kiddush Halavona? Kiddush Halavona was Baruch Mechadesh Chodoshim. That was Kiddush Halavona. Omar Ravashi responds, Haynoshe Didonami mevarche. Seems like it was some kind of a shtoch. Like, oh yeah, Baruch Mechadesh Chodoshim. That's a cute bracha. Our women also bless like that. Like, I guess the assumption being it's not a major undertaking. Like Rav Yehuda, Dam Rav Yehuda, rather the gears of the bracha is like Rav Yehuda, Baruch v'chulei asher b'ma'amara bar shchakim. This is going to be familiar to anybody who says Kiddush Levana, that in his words he created the, heavens, uvrach piv kol tzvav, and in the wind of his mouth all of the stuff there. Chok uzman, statutes and time, nasan lam, he gave to them, like the heavens and skies. Shleishanus tafkidam, that they should not change their purpose. Sosum usmeichem, lases v'tzin koinam. They rejoice and they are happy to do the will of their owner. Payale emes, they are workers of truth. Shepulos and emes, that their work is true. But Alvona Omar, Rashi says, Payale emes, hein she'ena meshanim mesidrim. Yeah, they don't change anything. They're just good, reliable workers. Every day, the sun rises, sun sets, moon rises, moon sets. It grows every month, expands, waxes and wanes. But Alvona Omar, and the Rebbeinu Shalom says to the moon, Shetischadesh, that you will renew yourself, Ateres Tferes, a crown of givaldigness, La'amuse Boten, to those who were held in the womb, I think that's the Yidden, Shenasidin Nischadesh, that the Yidden also are going to have a great renewal, like the moon has a renewal every month. And to lefoyer to their yotzrum, I don't know, like to do awesome, great awesomeness to their creator. Hashem kvod machuso, on the name of the honor of his kingdom. Ooh, the sun is right. Ooh. Now that's something. Ooh, I can barely see it. All I see is out the window, lots of colors. Azoy. You see, perfect. We're talking about poyale emes shepulos and emes, right? Shleishanus tafkidam. The sun is rising. Azoy. Over the mountains, over the Blue Ridge Mountains, you see what colors are peach. It's like a pink peach, and then like a peach, and then purple, and then blue. Azoy. Blessed are you, God, the one who renews the months. That with how do I say tachbulis? That with conniving, I guess, you make war. Omer Reb Acha Reb Chanina, Omer Reb Asim Reb Yechanan, b'mi ata moitzi milchamta shel Torah. With who do you find the milchama of Torah? That they're able to mamish, be in it to win it. Somebody who knows lots and lots of Bekiyas, lots and lots of Mishnayos, because if you know lots, then you have a lot to work with. And you could say, oh, but what about this Mishnah from here? But maybe we can answer from this Mishnah from there, and what about that over there, and this over that. Rav Yosef and Rav Yosef, of course we know from way back when, Masechta Brachos, that Rav Yosef is Sinai, that he knew lots and lots of Bekiyas. Rav Yosef would say about himself, V'rav Tvuis b'koyach shor, that an ox you can have a lot more of a yield of grain when you have an ox. I guess the reference being, the ox being, I guess, somebody who knows a lot of Torah, I guess. So when you know a lot of Torah, you could be a lot more effective in your learning. Azoi. Echad omer bishtei shos v'chulei. Okay. Fine. So if one says it was 2 hours, the other one says 3 hours into the day, we said it's fine. If one says 3 hours and one says 5 hours, we say it's not fine. But Reb Yehuda says it's okay. Now, it says Rav Shimon bar Ashi that this machlokes about is 3 and 5 okay or not. Chacham say no, Reb Yehuda says yes. It's only if we're talking about hour 3 and hour 5, but if one says it was before sunrise, Taka, it's sunrise. The sun, it's not sunrise yet, but the sun, it's getting there. It's rising. Azoi. So if one says it was before sunrise, the other says after sunrise, Edus and Betela, so then the testimony is bottled, because those are clearly, two different, you're not just messing up with a number, you're messing up with an actual reality. Pshita, that's obvious. Echad omer kodem einates, ve'echad omer be'einates. But no, rather, if someone says before sunrise, and the other one says it was during sunrise, then that's the problem. This should be a problem. May have thought, or may have thought that the one who says that it was during Enitzachama, it's because he was outside in a open space. And he just saw like kind of rays of the sun, and he got confused. He thought that it was during Netzachama, but it wasn't. Kamash Malon. So maybe we think that it's okay, Kamash Malon, that it is not okay. Okay, where are we? So we said that if one of the Talmidim gives a suggestion, what did we say exactly? Okay. Also Mashivin also Benem. So it says that if one of the students says, "Oh, I can make an argument to say that he's innocent," so we bring him up and we leave him there, the Gans Tog, the entire day. Also Ayom Besulo, but just for that day. That if what he's saying is Shaykh, so he wouldn't go down at all. What? But if his input is off the mark, so he nonetheless stays there for the entire day. Because if he comes up and gives a pshat and we don't accept it, so we kick him out, so then Kilu is Aliyah is a Yerida. So wow, so what a good thing. If he comes and says, I have a suggestion, it turns out it doesn't work out, but if then they would kind of like say, okay, now go back and sit down, it's embarrassing. He went up there and he was excused. Shtickle embarrassing. So we don't want to embarrass, we want to encourage. So even if we don't end up accepting what he says, he still, stays there for the rest of the day, so it's not like he's being kicked out. It's a very important yesod in creativity, right? Meaning if we're trying to encourage people to give input and to give ideas, so we want to be sensitive to those ideas, because ideas are very sensitive. right? When you say something and somebody says, no, that's stupid, sit down. So then, what does it do to a person's desire to share the next time? In design thinking, there's a concept of yes and. Whenever you're thinking creatively, you always want to accept the suggestion. And if you need to make a tweak to it, so say yes and also here's my input. But you never want to say that's stupid or that's never going to work, because it kills the idea, it kills the energy. Nobody then wants to share. When they share, they're thinking twice about if it's a good idea. Maybe they don't want to share at all because maybe they thought twice and decided against it. You want to create an environment where people feel comfortable and safe to be sharing ideas, and therefore the Gemara says that you don't want his aliyah to be a yerida. You don't want that he spoke up and he went up and went out on a limb to share his perspective to end up being embarrassing for him. So therefore he stays there, the Gans Tov. Omer Abai says, Abai Teguma Ha'im Ein Mamish B'dvar. So Abai says, okay, so we said that if what he says is valid, then he stays there indefinitely. If what he says is invalid, then he goes down at the end of the day. So now our Mishnah says that he stays only for the duration of the day. So it says Abai, our Mishnah is talking about when we don't ultimately accept his position. Matzulo's chis chulei. And we said that if, however, he was guilty, if they find that the majority of the judges hold that he is guilty, so then they go home basically, and they break up into pairs, and they're not allowed to drink wine. Yain my time alone. Why can't they drink any wine? The pasuk says v'laroznim a sheichra oskim birazu shalom. Those who are dealing with the secrets of the world, the Sanhedrin, al yishtakru, right? They shouldn't be having sheicher. They shouldn't be getting fashnikit. Ma, that sun is rising. Oh yeah, Zoe. Okay, here we go. Laro mai. So we said in the Mishnah that say, right, so if they're at a draw, so then they keep on adding two judges. They keep on adding two judges to see if that could break the break the stalemate, break the tie. Well, not necessarily a tie per se, but the point is if there's one more guilty opinion than innocent, so you have a majority of one for guilty, that's not enough for dinei nefashos. So we keep on adding two at a time to see if, we could break the impasse. Once we get to 71, we don't add any more. And if 36 say guilty, 35 say innocent, so then they just keep on arguing about it until somebody can change sides. So lo romai, but what if nobody changes sides? They've mamish, they started at 23, they're now at 71. Everyone has looked at every which way. Each person who says guilty says, look, I've looked at it all. This is my position. Everyone who says innocent feels the same way. So now what do you do? Amravacha pochin also. So Rabacha says, okay, look, if Imamish gets to a stalemate and they are stuck in a draw, so then he's potter. V'chein Amar Rabbi Yochanan pochin also. Similarly, Rabbi Yochanan says that if they are stuck in a draw, so then he is potter. On the Papa Labai says, Papa Labai v'lifter meikara. Says Papa Labai, once they get to 36, meaning they start at 23, they're at a draw, they're at a stalemate, so they keep on adding two, add two, mamish to 71, and it's still a draw. So Papa asks Abai, at that point, why do they have to start arguing? Like, can't we just say at that point, look, we're stuck, he's potter. Amalei, Achiyam Rabbi Yochanan, so Abai says that Rabbi Yochanan says, it's interesting that Abai is quoting Rabbi Yochanan, maybe just heard it as a tradition from Rabbi Yochanan, because nobody wants to leave with a draw. That's rough. It's like a sports game. They tie. When they tie, so boring. So, meaning they invested so much in this case. Like chaval that it should just be a draw. That they acquitted him just because they were stuck. So rather, they give one last ditch effort to try to make arguments to see if maybe somebody will change sides. Those say, why do we need to add two at a time? Why don't we just have the Bezdin of 23, and if 12 say guilty and 11 say innocent, So then, instead of like adding two, why don't they just do like the whole trying to convince somebody from the other side thing at that point? So Abai responds to her Papa, Rabbi Yossi koikavasach. Taka, Rabbi Yossi holds that way, the time that we learn in the Bible, Rabbi Yossi says, Rabbi Yossi, Kishem she'en mosifin al bezdin shoshim be'echod, just like we don't add once there's 71, kachi mosifin al bezdin shoshim be'shlosha, we also do not add to a bezdin of 23. Right, just like we don't add to a bezdin of 71, we also don't add to a bezdin of 23, according to Rabbi Yossi. And therefore, if they're at a draw at 23, 12 say guilty, 11 say innocent. So Rabbi Yossi would say we're not going to add any more judges. Tanu Rabbanan the rabbis taught. Omrim b'dinei mominis nizdakin adin. Vein omrim b'dinei nefashos nizdakin adin. By dinei mominis we say nizdakin adin. By dinei nefashos we don't say nizdakin adin. The question is, my nizdakin adin, what does this mean? If it means like, wow, this is a tricky, a difficult din, and we need more time, well then I would say fakir, that by dinei nefashos we'd say, wow, this is tricky, we need more time, but by dinei mominis we would not say it. We say fakir. We say by dinei mominis, but not by dinei nefashos. Amar Huna bar Manoach mishmei Rav Acha Breder Avika Ipuch. Okay, so Paul should switch it around. That we say nizdakin adin by dinei nefashos and not by dinei mominis. Rav Ashi Amar L'olam lo teipuch. Rav Ashi says, no, don't switch anything around. U'ma nizdakin adin chocham dina. What does nizdakin adin mean? It means that we did a good job. It's a very smart, a very wise judgment. We did a good job. So by dinei mominis we'll say, okay, we can give ourselves a pat on the back. We did a good job. By dinei nefashos though, we wouldn't just kind of like say, no, we did a good job. Leave us alone. No, we would keep on revisiting it by dinei nefashos. Meisvei have a contradiction. Who's the one who says nizdakin adin? The nizdakin adin, the greatest of the judges though, is the one who says nizdakin adin. So I understand if you say, he's giving himself a pat on the back. He's saying, we did a good job. Okay, I understand. That is why the most choshev person in the bezdin says, we did a good job. He's giving a stamp of approval. But if you say that, wow, this was a tough one, we need more time, we don't currently know it, we need to think about it more. Right? So isn't that embarrassing for the greatest of the bezdin to have to get up there and say, wow, this is really stumping me. I need more time. That's embarrassing. Well, why does it have to be the most choshev of the judges to say that? Davka punkt, he should be the one to say that. Because it's better to embarrass yourself than for other people to embarrass you. It's okay for you to say certain things, certain disparaging things, to admit certain things about yourself, while you wouldn't want other people to say them about you. And therefore, yes, punkt, it is the greatest of the judges who would be the one to say, hey, this is really stumping us, because better he should say it than somebody else should say it, and memele imply that he is stumped as well. Ikadam to those who say, I understand if you say, wow, we're really stumped. Now I understand why the greatest of the bezdin would be the one to say that we're stumped, because better he should embarrass himself than other people should embarrass him. But if you say that it means, wow, we really did a great job, what is the most choshev person in the bezdin just going to give himself a pat on the back like that? But the pasuk says, other people should praise you, not yourself. Shiny milsa de beidino tagol ramit. We say, yeah, but still, but in this, you're right. In general, you don't want to toot your own horn too much. But in this case, this is something that it's a statement that must be made from the bezdin. And who represents the bezdin? Who speaks on behalf of the bezdin? The most chashuv of the bezdin, and therefore it's his responsibility to say chacham dina. Kedetanis, we learn in the Mishnah, Gomer Sadover, Haymachnisin Osan, that this was a Mishnah. Where was this from? from the Avchavtes that after they finish all the deliberations, they bring them in. The question, who's them? The judges, the litigant, the witnesses, the litigants. Gadol Shel Dayanim Omer, and says the greatest of the Dayanim, the most chashuv of the Dayanim, Ish Ploni Ata Zaka, Ish Ploni Ata Chayiv. You are innocent. You are guilty. So we see that it is that the sort of statements coming from the Bezdin are professed by the most chashuv of the judges. The statements come from him. Hajan Olach Hayubotkin will come back to you. Perek Hayubotkin. Now we begin the next perek. Nigmar Adin Motziin Oso Lesoklo. This perek is going to talk about skila. It's going to talk about skila. I think for the next few prakim, I think we're going to be talking about Misas Bezdin. The next perek is called Arba Misos. The one after that is Ben Sora Mora, but then after that is Elu Ein HaNesrofim. And after that is Elu Ein HaNechnokin. And then after that, I think is already the last perek of the Masechta. We're already on, this is already the 6th perek out of 11, I think. So we're almost halfway. By the end of this perek, we'll be more than halfway. In about a week. So here we go. This is going to talk about skila. Okay. Nigmar Adin. So the verdict is out. Motziin Oso Lesoklo. And now the fellow unfortunately is chayav skila. So we're taking him out to stone him. Beis haskila yechutz lebezdin. So the gallows, the skila, the stoning spot was outside of Bezdin. The Gemara is going to talk about how far outside of Bezdin, but it was outside of Bezdin. Shneimar, as opposed to says, Hotze esamekalo, bring the cursor, right? This is talking about the fellow in the Midbar who blasphemed against the Rebbeinu Shalom. So we say, take him out. So Echad Omer, right? So therefore it's not in Bezdin, it was outside of Bezdin. Echad Omer al Pesach Bezdin. So now here's the thing: we want to make sure that there's still an opportunity. That there's still an opportunity to stop the execution, right? So basically, they're taking out the condemned, right? The defendant, the guilty defendant. They're taking him out, and as we said, the stoning spot is not right outside of Bezdin. They'd have to walk to it. We're going to see in the Gemara in a few minutes how far exactly that was. So now on the way, so they have to walk to this place. I don't know how long it takes, however long it takes to get there. We want to be able to stop the execution if somebody comes to Bezdin and says, wait, I have an argument to make to acquit the condemned. So what they would do is, so if somebody shows up in Bezdin, they need to stop the execution. How can they stop it as quickly as possible? Obviously, they didn't have walkie-talkies or anything like that. So how, as quickly as possible, do you convey the message that stop? Don't do anything. So Echad Omer al Pesach Bezdin. So you'd have somebody standing at the entrance to the Bezdin. Okay, so that if somebody shows up in Bezdin, so the judges would all remain in Bezdin. The way I understand it, the 23 judges, the Sanhedrin Katana, would remain in the Bezdin. And now, if somebody shows up to the Bezdin and says, wait, I have an argument to make in favor of the condemned, so then what happens is, so there's somebody standing at the entrance to Bezdin, Vasudrin biyado, and he has different like flags, I'd imagine. Kinds of like, I didn't really think about it, but things to wavy thingies in his hands. And there's a horse. The horse is not at Bezdin, because let's try to get the horse as far away from Bezdin as we can, but still within, view of the Bezdin. So again, so a horse was rachok mimenu, was far enough from the Bezdin Kadesha Yeroeu, so that the rider of the horse can still see the person who's going to be waving on things in the event that somebody comes with a argument in favor of the defendant. So if somebody shows up in court and says, wait, I can make an argument in favor of the defendant. Halamenev b'sudarim. So the person at the entrance to the Bezdin waves on his flaggy, wavy thingies. V'asus, and then the horse, whose rider is just far enough away, right? Is far enough away, but still within sight, sees that the person at the Bezdin waved his wavy thingies. Ruts, and then he takes off on his horse, umamidon, and says, people, stop, don't move, wait, someone has come to Bezdin, he's got arguments in favor of the defendant, don't do nothing, Bezdin is examining the evidence. And even if the defendant himself says, wait, I have an argument in to defend myself, machzirin also, we take him back to Bezdin. You can take him back to Bezdin, even several times, 4 times, 5 times. So long as, he's not just hakin a chaynik. So it's so long as he has a real argument to be made. The Gemara is going to ask, how do they know, right? Because if the judges stayed back in the Bezdin, and these are basically the executioners who's taking him out to be executed, so how do they know if there's mamash b'dvar or not? The Gemara is going to talk about this. Okay. Says the Gemara, in fact, the Gemara b'saskila chutz the Bezdin hava v'suloi. What? The stoning spot was just immediately right outside of Bezdin. We learned about b'saskila chutz the shalish machnis, that the stoning spot was beyond the borders of all 3 encampments of the Yidden. In Kedikamer, that's correct. It was outside of all 3 encampments. The reason why we say that it's outside of Bezdin, nafkemine, di nofik beidino, v'yosef chutz l'shalish machnis, that what if Bezdin is already out? What if the Bezdin is already outside of the 3 encampments of Israel? Right? Or like in just random cities. Of Dinan Bey, well, I guess if you're in a random city, I guess maybe it would be outside of the walls of the city, maybe. But let's say you have a Bezdin that right that is, outside of the borders. So then of Dina Beis Askila Chutz the Bezdin, we still need to distance the stoning spot from the Bezdin. Kiechi delo mischaze Bezdin rotzchen. Inami kiechi de te'ave le'atzala. The Gemara offers 2 reasons. One is that, the Rashi points out that there's a Mishnah, I think it's a relatively well-known Mishnah, maybe many of the Talmidei Chacham at Babylon Talmud are familiar with this Mishnah, that a Bezdin that, maybe I need to be more familiar. Sanhedrin ha'oreges pam achas b'shavua nikris chavlonis. That a Bezdin that kills 1 person every 7 years is called a very, very destructive Bezdin. Misas Bezdin, capital punishment, is not something that we pride ourselves on. It's not something that we want to do often. And when it's done, Bezdin has this negative reputation about them, right? Once in 7 years, somebody's chayiv Misas Bezdin, it's already called a very damaging, destructive Bezdin. These are not positive associations, they're negative associations. And therefore, right, in the event that capital punishment needs to be meted out, we want to distance that from the Bezdin, so that Bezdin shouldn't be associated with this very negative thing. That's reason number 1. Reason number 2 is simply so that there's time, right? If it was like the Ceausescu's in Romania, when these were not good people. There was a dictator of Romania. They had some kind of quick sham trial. Again, not that I'm supporting the guy. He was a rotten fellow, but as far as I know, I don't know that much. I just assume he was like a communist. He didn't seem like a rotten fellow. I'll just say that. They caught him. They had some sham trial. Took him out back. Him and his wife. They shot him. Done. We want to have a little bit more first of all, a little bit better, more transparent judiciary. That's one. But also, we want to give some time so that somebody can come and make an argument in their defense. We don't want to sort of execute the execution too quickly. We want to give time for people to come. Okay. To save the defendant. How do we know this? Know what? That the stoning spot was outside of all 3 encampments of Israel. the Tana Rabbanan, because we taught it was taught in the Brisa. Hotzias Mekala Michutz Lamachne. It says by the blasphemer, take him outside of the camp and stone him. Right? Does it say that? Yeah, it does. Take him outside of the camp and stone him. Chutz l'gimel machnis. Take him outside of all three camps and stone him. Wait, how do you know that it means outside of all three camps? Maybe it just means take him outside of one of the camps, out of Machne Shechina. Don't do it in Machne Shechina. Nemar kan michutz lamachne, v'nemar b'par manisrofin chutz lamachne. Well, it says over here by the blasphemer michutz lamachne, and it says by the par manisrofim michutz lamachne. What's the par manisrofim? The par helam davar shel tzibur, the par kohen Mashiach. So the par kohen Mashiach is that if the kohen gadol sins, so he's got to bring a cow and it's burnt outside of the camp. Also par helam davar shel tzibur, which we'll learn about Masechta Horiyos. If the entire nation does an aver because Bezdin ruled that it was mutter, but then they realized that it's also, so you bring a par davar shel tzibur. Both of those cows, par kohen Mashiach and par davar shel tzibur, are burnt entirely outside of the camp. So now, where are we? So now again, Nemar kan michutz lamachne. It says by the Mekala, by the blasphemer michutz lamachne, v'never par manisrofim chutz lamachne, and it says by the par manisrofim chutz lamachne ma'lahalon chutz l'shalosh machnes, just like by the par manisrofim, it means outside of all three camps. Afkan chutz l'shalosh machnes. So here also by the blasphemer, we're talking about outside of all three camps, we would stone the blasphemer. Now, now how do we know by the blasphemer? No. How do we know by par manisrofim that it's outside of all three camps? Well, the Tana Rabbanan said, "V'hotzi es kol apar el michutz lamachne." It says by the par kohen Mashiach. It says by the par kohen Mashiach that you take the entire cow el michutz lamachne outside of the camp. Chutz l'shalosh machnes, outside of all three camps. Wait, how do we know that by par kohen Mashiach we're talking about outside of all three camps? Maybe it means outside of just one camp. Well, well, when it says by the par davar shel tzibur, right, in Sefer Vayikra, these are two parshas that are one right after the next. When I say parsha, I don't mean parsha Shavua, I mean two sections in the Torah. So these are two parshas that are one right after the next. First it has par kohen Mashiach, and then immediately afterwards is the par helam davar shel tzibur. So again, now by the par helam davar shel tzibur, which comes after the par kohen Mashiach. So by the par helam davar shel tzibur, it also says el michutz lamachne she'ein tam lomer, but it shouldn't say by the par helam davar shel tzibur el michutz lamachne she'arei kvar nema, because it already says v'saraf also kasher sarfus aparishin, because in the psukim by a par helam davar shel tzibur it says that you will do to the par, you will treat the par helam davar shel tzibur, the halachos of the par helam davar shel tzibur are the same as that of the par kohen Mashiach, right? It says v'sarf also burn the par helam davar shel tzibur kasher sarfus aparishin, in the same manner in which you burnt the par kohen Mashiach. So if the par kohen Mashiach already says that it should be al michutz lamachne, and we're saying that burn the par helam davar shel tzibur the same way, so we may let out that's also michutz lamachne. So then why does it say michutz lamachne by the par helam davar shel tzibur if we don't need to? Litain lo machne shniya, to say, well, to say that by the par manisrofim it's outside of an additional machne. Okay, so we know outside of Machne Shechina, also outside of Machne Levia. Now, and when it says Mechutz Machne by Deshen, I think that means by Truma Sadeshen, right? So it says that they would take the ashes outside of the camp. She'ein Talmud Lomar, that it doesn't need to say by where you're going to take the ashes that right from the tapuach, from the ashes that were gathered on the mizbeach, it doesn't need to say that you're going to take them outside of the camp. How come? Because by Par Kohen Mashiach, it says two things. It says Mechutz Lamachne by Par Davar Shel Tzibur, but it also says El Shefech Hadeshin, to the place where the ashes from the mizbeach are poured out. So Memele, where are the ashes of the mizbeach poured out? Well, it's going to be the same place where the Par Kohen Mashiach is burned. So, one second. Okay, fine. So, therefore I don't need by the ashes to say that it's Mechutz Lamachne, because I know that the Par Kohen Mashiach is taken to the place of the Shefech Hadeshin. And there we know that it's, for now we know it's outside of two camps. So I don't need by the Deshin to say Mechutz Lamachne. Because don't tell me where it is. I already know that it's wherever the Par Kohen Mashiach is. So why does it say Mechutz Lamachne? Litein lo machne shlishis, to say that, to add another camp. To say that by Par Kohen Mashiach and by Par Davar Shel Tzibur and by the Shefech Hadeshin, it's outside of three machnos, because it says Mechutz Lamachne in each of those cases, even though it doesn't need to say Mechutz Lamachne by Par Davar Shel Tzibur and by the Shefech Hadeshin. But now fact the Gemara, okay, fine, Givaldi. So we say that Par Manisrafim is a Mechutz Lamachne, the Shalosh Machnos. We also have the blasphemer, and we're saying the blasphemer is stoned outside of three camps. How do we know the blasphemer is stoned outside of three camps? Well, because we learn out from Par Manisrafim, which is outside of three camps. But why don't we learn out Mikalel from Shchutei Chutz? Malaholon chutz lamachne achas, afkan chutz lamachne achas. By shchutei chutz, which is when you slaughter a, or I think we said recently even a burn also. But anyways, or was it? Or no, I think it was maybe shvichas zvikas adam. Anyways, if you slaughter a korban outside of the machne shchina, outside of the azara, so that's shchutei chutz. Now, so that Mechutz Lamachne over there is outside of one camp. So maybe by Mechutz Lamachne by stoning is also just outside of one camp, not outside of three camps. So Mistavim Mipar Madasofin Havale the Melaf. So the Gemara says, meh, we'd rather learn it out from Par Madasofim. How come? Shekain Hotze. Well, it says Hotze both by the Mekalel as well as by Par Madasofim. El Mechutz Lamachne. It also says El Mechutz Lamachne by the Mekalel and by Par Madasofim, whereas it's slightly different when it comes to Shchutei Chutz. It says Asher Yishchot Michutz. Is that what it is? Loksiv Ela Asher Yishchot Michutz. I think Lamachne. But it's not El Michutz Lamachne, I guess. It's Michutz Lamachne. Okay. Machshir, also by Skila and by Par Madasofim, this is right. Michutz Lamachne is where you're supposed to go, whereas by Shchutei Chutz it's where you're not supposed to go. Umechaper and Skila as well as Par Madasofim, we're talking about kapara, right? As we're going to learn, not the next Mishnah, but maybe the one after that. That kol mumasin misvadin, that you do vidui before capital punishment. And capital punishment is a kapara for your sins. So, right, so, and the same thing by Par Madasofim. Those are, right, you bring those korbanos to get a kapara. Now, as opposed to Shchutei Chutz, where it's not a kapara, it's an avera. To which we argue, no, I want to argue fakert. Let's learn out Mikalel from Shchutei Chutz. How come? Shekain Odom, because after all, Mikalel and Shchutei Chutz, the main subject is the person, the blasphemer, the slaughterer, whereas by Par Madasofim, the main character is the cow. Chote, obviously the Mikalel is sinning, as well as Shchutei Chutz is a sin, whereas Par Parim and Asrafim is betzim, it's a mitzvah. And ultimately, right, okay, it comes after a mistake, but betzim, it's a mitzvah to offer these korbanos. Banishome, the blasphemer is killed, skila. Shchutei chutz, you're slaughtering an animal. By Parim and Asrafim, though, we're not taught, right, that the animal's already killed. We're saying that you then have to burn it. But it's not, the main thing over here is not the netilas neshama. And pigul, the mekalel and shchutei chutz do not have an aspect of pigul, of the korban able to become posel via pigul, which I'm not going to get into right now. But which is not the case by Parim and Asrafim. Again, they're already kind of slaughtered, and we just need to burn it somewhere. Nonetheless, machshav other flay, to which the Gemara says, still, we prefer to learn out the mekalel from Parim and Asrafim, since mekalel and Parim and Asrafim, we're talking about how you're supposed to do something, as opposed to shchutei chutz, which is talking about a sin, something that you're not supposed to do. So we'd rather learn out the two examples where it's telling you how to do something, as opposed to the example where it's telling you how not to do something. Okay, technically speaking, I could end the daf here, but I want to keep going because it's basically just still the same topic. So I'm just going to keep going. Technically, if you want, you could stop it here and pick it up from here tomorrow, but I think it's better to just keep on going, because we're going to give basically two other opinions how we know that skila is michutz to shalosh machnos. And if we start from here tomorrow, we're going to have to, also there's like a bit of a discussion, and so I think it's better to just keep going. Rav Papa Omer says, Rav Papa, Moshe Eicha Abba Yosef, where was Moshe? The Machne Leviah. Moshe was a Levi, he was a Machne Leviah. V'Omer Le Rachmon, and the Torah says, Hotze es Makal, Michutz Lamachne, take the blasphemer outside of the camp. So, Chutz Machne Leviah, so outside of Moshe's camp, outside of the camp that Moshe was in, which is Machne Leviah. Okay, so outside of the Machne Leviah, of course, is the second camp, so outside of two camps. Vayotziu es Makal Michutz Lamachne, and they took out the Mikal Michutz Lamachne, Chutz Lamachne Yisrael, that's an additional Machne outside of the Machne Yisrael. Haimi Baile La'asiyah, but one second, isn't Vayotziu es Makal needed to teach that they did Vayotziu, and they did it? No, Asiyu Bejik Siva. Elsewhere we see that they did it. Uvnei Yisrael also Kasha Tziva Hashem as Moshe. The Pasuk Poshet says, and the Yidden did as Moses commanded. It says that explicitly. Elamiyata Vayirgemu, I think Vayirgemu, right? Vayirgemu. Also, Oven, my Avdei, right? If the Pasuk says, Vaydaber Moshe el bnei Yisrael, I'm reading the pasuk. Vayotziu es mekal mechutz hamachne. Vayirgemu also Oven. So if we're learning out something from Vayotziu, then what are we learning out from Vayirgemu? So Haumi boile lichdetanya. I think that's pshat. That is needed for what we learn in the Brisa. Vayirgemu also ba'oven. Also v'lo b'ksusa, as we're going to learn in a few days, that you stone him naked without his clothing, just him in his birthday suit. Oven she'imez be'evan achas yotzo, and oven in the singular to say that even if it only took one stone to kill him, you yotze. That's all you need. V'itzrich l'michtov oven v'itzrich l'michtov avonim, and it needs to say Evan in the singular, but it also says avonim. In the pasuk Vayom Hashem Moshe Mosi Moseish Rogam also ba'avonim Chol Edom Mechutz Lamachne. That was part by the Makoshesh. So over there it's avonim plural. So because of Achmana oven, if we don't say oven singular, Havamina Eicha de lo meis bechada lo neisi achvisa miktale. Well, if it only said singular, I would think you basically, as we're going to see in a few days, by skila, you basically chuck him off a few stories, and then you throw a stone at him. And I would think if he's still alive, then we leave him be. So because of Achmana avonim, therefore it says stones in the plural to say no. If he's still alive, then chuck more at him. Because of Achmana avonim, and if it said avonim plural and no singular, havamina meikar nesi tarte, that you need already, midchatchila you need at least two. Because of Achmana oven, therefore it says Evan singular. That one is enough, but if you need to, you use more. V'hai tana nemar ka'omar. So now, Frekti Gemara, an important question again, which this is why I wanted to continue going on today, because this gets back to what we learned in the first part with the Gzeir Shava, with Al Mechutz Lamachnes. So now, Frekti Gemara, it sounded like we had a Gezerah Shava going on there. It says Mechutz Lamachne in these places. How come it says Mechutz Lamachne in all of them to add things? It sounds like this is sort of undisputable. How could Amoraim now be coming and saying, actually we know Mechutz Lamachne because Moshe was in the Machne Leviah? I don't understand. Don't we have a Gezerah Shava? So Frekti Gemara, the Tana of the Brisa, Nemar Kamer, he's saying Gezerah Shava. It says Mechutz Lamachne in 3 places. We can learn them all out from each other. So either lo Nemar Kamer, v'achi Kamer. No, what the Brisa is saying is, if we didn't have the psukim of, Moshe being in the Machne Leviah and going out to Machne Shechina, etc., well then we would be able to nonetheless rely on the Gezerah Shava. V'achi Kamer. This is what he's saying. Either lo Nemar Kra, if we didn't have these psukim of Hotzeis HaMakal Mechutz Lamachne, Vayotzeis HaMakal Mechutz Lamachne, if we didn't have those psukim, well then Gezerah Shava, I would say, well, we always have this Gezerah Shava to learn that it's Mechutz Shalosh Machnos. However, Achshav Sheneh Makra Gezerah Shava Leitzarch. But now that we have a pasuk to teach us, right, that Moshe was in Machne Leviah, and it says Hotzeis HaMakal Mechutz Lamachne, Vayotzeis HaMakal Mechutz Lamachne, to say that it's outside of all 3 Machnos, so we don't need the Gezerah Shava anymore. Ravashi says, Ravashi, Moshe Eichahava Yosef, where was Moses? The Machne Leviah, he was in Machne Leviah. V'amar Rachmana Hotzei es Makal. Chutz the Machne Leviah. And Ravashi says, well, it says Hotzei es Makal, take him out. So if he's already in Machne Leviah, where do you take him out to? So outside of Machne Leviah to Machne Yisrael. El Mechutz Lamachne, and then when it says El Mechutz Lamachne, Chutz Machne Yisrael means even outside of Machne Yisrael. So therefore it's outside of all 3 camps. Vayitziu esem makal la'asiyah. And when it says Vayitziu esem makal, and they took the makal out, it means that they did it. It's not to teach another machne, it's to say that they did as they were told. They took him outside of all 3 machnes. Asiyah bedrik sidbu, but doesn't it already say explicitly Uvnei Yisrael also? Kashetziv Hashem es Moshe, it says explicitly. That, and the Yidden did as they were told. So Humi Boile, so the Rosabach amends this to be like Rashi says, Humi Boile l'smicha v'l'tchiyah. That when it says, and they did as they were told, it means that they also included in what they did that they were told, it was included that they also pushed him and, well, they, I guess, leaned on him and then pushed him. Omar, Amrulei, Rabbanon, the Ravashi, the Rabbi said to Ravashi, L'didach, according to Kolani, Hotzei, D'chsiv, B'parim, Adasov, my Darashta, Bu Kasha. Ravashi had said, learned from Hotzei as a Makal, because it says Hotzei means take him out of an additional camp. So the Gemara, so the rabbis asked Ravashi, by the Parim and Asofim, it says Hotzei, right? It says, what is it? V'hotzei is called a Parim Mechutz Lamachne. And it says, V'hotzei is a Parim Mechutz Lamachne. Kilu, what do you do with those Hotzeis? Right? If over here is learning Hotzei means outside of another camp, so then what do you do with them in the context of the Parim and Asofim, which we already learned out, that outside of all 3 camps? Oops, wait, 1 second. One second. I think I may have made a mistake when I was just explaining earlier the Nemer Ka'amar. Kilu the Gezerah Shava, not the Gezerah Shava by the Parim HaNisrafim, but the Gezerah Shava Kilu from Mikalo to Parim HaNisrafim. So what do you do with that Gezerah Shava? So if we didn't have these psukim, then I would rely on that Gezerah Shava. But now the psukim, we don't need the Gezerah Shava. Sorry about that. But anyways, now we asked her of Ashi, where we learned out from Hotzei, so what do you do with that in the context of the Parim HaNisrafim? So it's Taka Good Kasha. What do you do with it in the context of the Parim HaNisrafim? Chevre, that was daf Mem Beis of Masechta Sanhedrin. It was a long daf. I suspected it was going to be a long daf, and it was. But we learned a lot of interesting stuff. We learned about Kiddush Levana. We finished the and other interesting sort of tidbits, and then we finished the 5th parak of Masechta Sanhedrin. We started the 6th parak of Masechta Sanhedrin, Nigmar Adin. We talked about Skila, starting to talk about more about Skila and how far the base of Skila is from the Bezdin. Peace out.